sad day for everyone. I'm sure that a lot of
Yeah.
people have heard in the news about Pacific Cinemas closing their doors, which includes the Arclight. And as far as anybody who lives in LA knows that the Cinema Dome is pretty much a landmark and a fixture of the community and filmmaking community for ever since the 1960s. And to have that being closed down now is pretty it's
It's
pretty extreme,
devastating.
and it's
It's
devastating, and it
devastating.
really it scares you when you think about the future of cinema, the future of theaters. Even if it wasn't for the COVID thing, it seemed like the COVID thing sped all the inevitable things up that we were always afraid of.
Well, I mean, not only is specific um, owners of the ArcLight, but it's also owner of the theater at the Grove, and that's
Yeah,
closed
yeah,
too.
yeah. So a
And
lot of theaters got shut down because of this.
which is, I mean, I felt really bad because it started for me with Alamo Draft House because when I finally went to it started in I think Austin, and then we finally got one in Los Angeles, and I got to tell you, I love that theater. I thought that was a great theater, and when I heard they closed, I felt really bad. But man, I got to tell you, when they said the ArcLight was closed for good, my heart just broke. The Cinema Dome.
Yeah, I mean, my only hope and prayer is that some corporation will step in and take it over and treat it with the dignity that it deserves. But the nice thing about ArcLight was that it was sort of a higher end theater. I
Hmm.
mean, you paid extra for it, but
I felt like you got extra for it though.
yeah, it was definitely worth it, especially if it's a film that you really wanted to see. I mean,
Hmm.
uh, usually the moviegoers at that theater were new new theater going manners. They
Hmm.
weren't sitting there on their iPads or their iPhones during the
Right.
cinema experience, or they weren't talking like they were in their living room, that kind of a
Hmm.
thing. Nice
Yeah.
seats. You could
Hmm.
eat and drink.
The ushers will come out and present the show. It made it an
Yeah.
actual event. There was this nice little bar that we used to go to get drinks before we would go see a movie there. When you went to the ArcLight, it was something special. It was almost similar to like if you went to the Chinese Man Theater.
Right.
There's certain theaters that you go to that makes it feel special, and a lot of that depends on the movie.
It's an experience. Like you said, it's an
Yeah.
experience. You're not just going to see a movie. It's not something that you're just kind of, it's not something just to pass the time. It's something that you carve out a certain amount of time for. Maybe you're taking a date with you.
Or maybe you premiere your own movie at ArcLight. I
Hmm.
mean, we premiered our film War was at ArcLight,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
remember that was a special time for us when we went and saw
yeah.
it.
And that theater
It's
will always be special because of that. And
yeah,
for me, anyways. And the fact that it's
yeah.
now its future is sort of up in the air and not knowing where that's going to lead to, or even if it does come back, what condition will it come back in?
Hmm.
It's going to depend heavily on what company takes it over, or if a company does take it over. I'm praying that somebody does. But if you look at certain companies that might take it over, they might not be concerned about the movie going experience the way ArcLight was, or way the
Right.
specific Cinema Dome. I mean, think of all of the great movies. I remember when the Columbia had their
Yes.
anniversary. Yeah,
God, we saw so many great films there. What was it? We saw Lawrence of Arabia, The Bridge over the River Kwai, Taxi Driver. It
uh,
was
Close Encounters of
um,
the Third
Close
Kind.
Encounters of Third Kind. There were so many great movies that we saw there.
And even more
You,
recently, we got a chance to see the Apocalypse Now, the latest
that's
cut
right.
from Coppola,
That's
and got to see
we got
Coppola
to we got
and
to see Coppola.
yeah, got to see
Uh,
Coppola and
we took a
John
picture with
Milius.
we took a picture with him outside of
Yeah,
the ArcLight. There's so many great memories there.
yeah, some awesome memories there, and it's just the fact that now that experience might be completely in memory and never again. We don't,
Ah,
hope. Like I said, I hope that somebody takes it over and treats it with the respect that it deserves, because there's so much history in that theater. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's the first Cinerama screen that they constructed.
Yeah, I remember the first movie I saw when I moved to Los Angeles was Giant. They showed Giant there, and wasn't Giant like almost 4 hours long?
Yeah, it's a 4-hour
Yeah,
film. Yeah.
yeah. See, and people saw it at the theater. Nobody complained. Anyway,
In fact, you gave Oscars to people for making the 4-hour movie than that one. So
yeah. So do you remember the last film you saw at the Arclight?
it was the Apocalypse Now.
For me, though, I think the last film I saw at the Pacific Dome was 2001, when they did the re-release for the 50th anniversary. Man, it was what a sight. And that was the first time I seen that movie. That was the first time I seen 2001, and I got a chance to see it in a cinema dome. That was awesome, and I just enjoyed that movie experience watching it there. I think now ArcLight. I mean, we would also see the ArcLight in Sherman Oaks, and I think the last movie I saw in Sherman Oaks, I think, is Joker. I think
it probably was. It probably was the last film that we saw there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad, man. It really is. It's just like, and not to mention what's really sad, they made great popcorn. It's just something about the butter that they put on their popcorn, man. I mean, they were jacking prices up. Let's be for real. They were really jacking prices. And I think part of that was because they were already in debt. And we knew about that before the pandemic. They were struggling. And so they started jacking up a lot of prices. And, we say movie theaters, tickets were expensive to begin with. Where an average movie, where we were coming up, I'm not going to talk about how low the ticket prices were. But there was a time where you could buy a ticket, for me, for like $7. $7 a ticket. Now it went from like 14 to even, and you go to ArcLight, that's like $21. But that's the reason why you had to be very selective on the movies that you saw. That movie had to have been very special for you to go and see it at the ArcLight.
Yeah, because it was an experience, I mean, because how many times when we would go there, we wouldn't just go see the movie and leave. We go there and we maybe hang out at the bar, have a drink or two,
maybe have dinner there.
Yeah, maybe have a dinner.
The
never
staff was incredible.
Never underestimate the power of customer service. Especially at a movie theater.
And not to mention, it was also great for a celebrity signing. Everybody that's anybody would come at the ArcLight. I mean, you would see movie stars and act.
I remember seeing Salma Hayek, Eva Longoria, Russell Brand.
I remember a long conversation with Russell Brand, man.
Yeah,
I mean, that was Cameron Diaz.
Justin Timberlake. Yeah, we saw them.
Okay.
And
I remember seeing Keanu Reeves walk out of the bathroom. It was always there was always these celebrities that would pop in there. This pandemic really has ruined a lot of lives. This last year was probably one of the worst years that this world has ever seen, and I'm not being over dramatic. I mean, considering the amount of lives that we've lost, but just how it destroyed livelihoods and how small business and major businesses weren't able to survive, and the movie theater is it's always been kind of like a church for me to escape the reality, and when that closed, that was one of the hardest years of my life. I'm not being able to see things in theaters. So
it's like the Notre Dame burning, right?
Yeah.
When you heard that Notre Dame caught fire and burned down.
Oh yeah.
It sort of kind of has that kind of impact on you when you go, gosh, that's.
Well, the Cinema Dome is also a landmark, and so the one thing you don't want them to do is destroy it.
No.
And that's my fear, is that they're constantly getting rid of all these landmarks that makes Hollywood, and I'm praying, and even the theater,
maybe Tarantino will come in and buy it, because we know Tarantino loves that theater. So
he used it in his movie, even though it was only on there for 3 seconds. I'm like, that's a lot of work, pal, for just only 3 to 4 seconds. The theater at the Grove. I mean, what's going to become of the Grove? Because the theater was one of the biggest drawing points to the Grove. And the fact that you're not going to have a theater, I think a lot of those restaurants are going to suffer a lot because those people that would, like you said, usually you go see a movie, then you go get a bite to eat. Now, not having that there, I mean, people can shop and leave. I don't know. I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, speaking of the Grove, though, I mean, there's another thing. I mean, not only movie theaters, but just retail shops are not selling the way they
Right.
used to. And now you're seeing lots of
Yeah.
retail shops closing their doors because
Hmm.
now everything is being delivered to you on Amazon, just like Netflix and everybody else is delivering movies to you at home. So, cultural experience of going out, getting products, and even going to see a movie and even getting food now, everything is order online, which is a great convenience, but at the same time, we are losing some sort of a cultural interaction there. We're not experiencing things as a group of people anymore. It's all kind of individuals in a bubble.
I guess change is inevitable, but at the same time, it's also scary, and it is. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I don't know what Hollywood was going to look like without having those theaters around. The only thing you have that's prestige now is the Man's Chinese Theater,
Hmm.
and that's a landmark. And
Well, you're
heaven
hoping
help
nothing
us.
happens to that, right? I mean, good
Yeah,
Lord.
because we almost lost the Egyptian, but Netflix bought the Egyptian, and so maybe Netflix or some other Amazon will buy the ArcLight, and we'll see. I guess we'll see. But
Well, yeah, just
it's
keep it intact. I mean, also, just on another note, as far as Hollywood goes, and this is a head scratcher, and maybe you'd have some input on this, but I've been baffled for years about this, especially in the last, what, 20 years, even 30 years, but especially in the last 20 years, we've seen production leaving LA. Everything's being made now in Atlanta, Georgia, or in New Orleans, or maybe even, Prague. Everything. And let's face it, we made our own film, War, a few years back. We made that up in Vancouver, and that was supposed to take place in San Francisco. So we have all these productions leaving California, leaving Hollywood, leaving Los Angeles, and being shot at other places. And there doesn't seem to be a want or a need to bring those productions back. And now I'm starting to see it even in the theatrical venue, whereas that whole thing that LA and Hollywood was known for, we're kind of losing our identity. I think with the film industry, it's sort of like it's just drying up and dying. It seems like, and nobody seems to be concerned about it one bit. Did I just bring down the room? I brought down the room, didn't I?
yeah.
I brought down the room. Oh,
I
real!
think
I just got too real.
I I think this is about as all I can handle. Let- let-
I'm shocked that more studios aren't taking care of their industry. They're not. It seems like everybody just wants to take the money and run and burn it all down. Let
Look,
let somebody else sort it out.
I think after the industry got shut down by deadly virus all last year, it's still out there, so we're still not out of the woods. Studios are focusing on streaming because that's the only way they can make money. Now, fortunately, Godzilla versus Kong did make money, and I mean actual money, not just pandemic. Like, oh, it did okay for pandemic. It's like I think so far worldwide, Kong versus Godzilla has made at least $500 million. That's
And
incredible.
that's at
When you
25% capacity here in California. So
it,
that's pretty awesome.
exactly, and that's also at the same time they also released it on HBO Max. So the fact that it
Hmm.
still made that amount of money does show that movie theaters are starting to come back and starting to come back strong. It's just that
And
unfortunately,
it shows that there is an audience for it, right? There shows that
oh
even
yeah,
though you are showing
absolutely,
it on your
yeah,
television or your
absolutely.
computer, that people still want that experience of going to the movie theater.
Right, but unfortunately, the theaters themselves were hit so hard.
I always had a theory about the way films are exhibited now. Um, we just kind of touched on that with ArcLight prices, right? Because to
Hmm.
go to an ArcLight to see a movie at the ArcLight is going to cost you probably $5 or $6 more than it would at a regular theater. They make sure that people are mindful of the movie going experience, and if somebody were making too much noise or something like that, they'd be definitely called out on that. So, and the fact that the seats were great and that there wasn't a bad seat in the theater, right?
Right, right.
That all makes that movie going experience more enjoyable. And the fact that it's assigned seating, that you don't have to stand in line, that you can go in there at your leisure, get a ticket, know exactly where you're going to be sitting, and not have to worry about that anxiety of, oh my God, get a good seat or not. To me, that's worth the extra $5 or $6. That was worth it.
Yes.
But at the same time, and I understand this, remember when we were growing up, and even in Chicago, when we would go see a movie, we go see matinees of films that we knew weren't going to be very good. I mean, we knew going into the theater that, okay, it's probably going to be a lame movie, but hey, it's something to do in 2 hours, and we either liked an actor in it, or maybe liked the director, or just liked maybe just to make fun of it. Whatever, we would go and
Right.
see these movies there, and sometimes you'd find a real gem, and sometimes you'd see a real stinker, but you never really worried about it, or you never really felt like cheated, or you never felt like you were robbed because it only costed $4 or $5 to see a matinee, right?
Right. Right.
And I always felt that, yes, there are those films that I'm totally willing to pay $20 for, or 25 or 26. And sometimes for some IMAX 3D presentations, it's almost $30 for a ticket, right?
Right.
If I'm going to see a movie like that in that kind of setting, okay, I can take that. I can say, okay, this is something special. This is an event. This is going to be worth that kind of money because I'm going to see it in such a way that it's going to be an experience. But there are these other films like, your English Patience, or your, Kramer versus Kramer type movies, that I think you lose something when you only see them at at your home, as opposed to seeing them in a theater, because there is that ability to see even those type of intimate films in the theater that makes it even more powerful to you. And I think that if I had an opportunity to see like a Kramer versus Kramer, or maybe an independent film at the theater, but only pay maybe $10 for the ticket, or $12 as opposed to a full, $17 or $18, that might be more attractive to me. And I would probably go see movies more often at the theater if most of the films that we saw, at least that weren't tentpole movies, but just regular, good, solid dramas or comedies even, that I could maybe only pay maybe $8 to $10 to see, as opposed to $21, I would probably go to the theater more. And we know that theaters themselves, theater chains, usually make their money in the concessions, whether it's the sodas or the popcorn or whatever, candy. They make their money, or they make their bones by selling us, refreshments. And I think that whatever money they might lose in the price of the theater ticket, they can make up for in the concessions. And that was always my thought, is that in a lot of ways, the movie theaters and even maybe the studios are at fault for this, is that they kind of price themselves out of business.
I think you're absolutely right on that. But anyway, I say we should wrap it up. Again, it's just one of those days where we lose a couple of landmarks, and so keep our fingers crossed. Maybe someone will come and save it at the last minute, and even if they do, it's going to change. It's going to look different. Look, as long as they're playing movies, that'll be great. But it'll be different than what the ArcLight was, and I have some very fond memories of that place. It sucks.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
let's hope that somebody out there hearing us or listening will
that's
get
rich.
inspired
That's
and say,
super,
"Yeah, that's
super,
super
super
rich.
rich. That says, I can make it different.
I can make
You
it
could
happen."
save them. Yeah, you could save them. You could save them all. I know, Lee. Where can everybody find you?
Okay, they can find me at Lee Anthony Smith on Instagram, as well as Facebook and Twitter. And of course, you can always follow our podcast here at Noir the Film, as well as updates on our film, Noir. That is, we're right now in the process of finishing up.
Please like, subscribe, Noir the Film on our YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of summer. So everyone that's listening, everybody that likes what we have to say, help support us, and
Even if you don't like what we have to say, like and subscribe.
hit that subscribe button anyway. We will listen. That's for sure. We will listen. So if you have a comment
We'll take notes.
on the
We'll
on
take
the
notes.
arc lights, please let me know. And you can follow me at Gregory J Bradley on Twitter and Instagram. All right, my friend. I will catch you on the flip side. Hopefully, when our movie's done, hopefully there'll be theaters to show it in. Everybody, talk to you later.
Take care. Bye bye.